Hello everyone, a warm welcome to Wisdom from North. My name is Jannica and today you're about to hear an extraordinary story. My guest on the show is Sherry Wilde. Sherry was a successful real estate owner, a mother and a wife when she underwent hypnosis that revealed memories that had been buried deep down in her subconscious. These memories were of alien encounters and abduction experiences, and they now came to the surface and filled in the blanks of Sherry's life. In 2013, Sherry wrote the book, The Forgotten Promise, Rejoining Our Cosmic Family, a book she says was inspired by who she refers to as her guides. Sherry, much welcome to Wisdom from North.
Thank you, Jannica. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You know, I really loved reading your book because it has such a loving message. And like I've told you before, I've been a bit hesitant to talk about these phenomena because I've been associating them with fear. But then I read your book and it has such an inspirational message that I feel is worthwhile spreading. And at the same time, there's many people who are talking about that they're having these kinds of experiences. And I think it's important that we keep an open mind about this and talk about it.
Right.
So what I want to start with before we go into the more details about who these beings are, let's go back to 1988 where you first did this hypnosis and all this information came out. Like, why did you decide to undergo hypnosis when you had like no idea that you've had alien encounters in your life? What was the purpose of going to that hypnosis?
Right. That's a good question. Good place to start. So, because it is a strange thing, I didn't believe in alien abductions when I heard about it. My community in 1987 started having a UFO flat, and it was a very active. It was the hot spot in the world for UFO activity. And it was right at that same time that I had started to become obsessed with a memory of lost time. When I was 17 years old in 1968, I had been going to my girlfriend's house and driving along a country road, and my car stalled and rolled to a stop right in front of these four men. And I lost 2 hours of time. My girlfriend remembered it, and I remembered it. And for some reason, I have never had curiosity about what happened to me. I just went on with my life. And all of a sudden, 20 years later, I'm 37 years old, and it became an obsessive thought for me. I just started to think about it, and I thought how odd that was that I never investigated that. I never was curious, never wanted to know what had happened to me. So I started to think I needed to get hypnotized. That was the only way I tried. I had been trying and trying every night before I would fall asleep. I could remember so clearly driving down the road. I could remember everything very clearly as I made that journey over to my girlfriend's house. But there I would roll to that stop, and I knew that one of the men had come over to the car and had leaned on the hood of the car and looked through the windshield at me and everything. I remembered all that. But I couldn't get a fix on his face, and something in me knew that if I could just see his face, that was the key to it. And so I kept trying and trying to see his face every night when I'd fall asleep, thinking that in my subconscious, as I went to sleep, maybe that image would come to the surface. So we have this flat going on and this hoobaloo about UFOs, and I had no interest in it. But my girlfriend said to me, the same girlfriend, coincidentally, who when I was 17, I was on the way to her house. My life is filled with all these little magical miracles. And so it was this very same girlfriend whose house I was going to, and she was very interested in this UFO flat. And she said to me, remember that time when you would come into my house and your car stalled and you were 2 hours late, and you got to my house and you said you saw a spaceship and little men? And I said, what? I remember the 2 hours of missing time, that were unaccounted for, but I don't remember talking about a spaceship and little men. And she said, you did. You said that you had been with these little men on a spaceship. And I just thought she was cuckoo, you know, a little bit. I didn't know what she was remembering. But I did have interest in the fact that she recalled that same event. So she said, you know, they're looking for people like that who have missing time. People right now who see a UFO, and then if they have missing time, they say that that time might be that the person is abducted and they're taken on a spaceship. And under hypnosis, they remember, you know, they recall what happened during that time. And I said, that's the goofiest thing I ever heard of. I said, I don't believe that can happen. That's not possible. It just didn't resonate with me. But I liked the idea of the hypnotist. You know, I mean, I thought that that was a good idea. So I went with her to they had like a press release, the investigators, and I went there not believing at all. And I was indifferent to it. You know, it isn't that I didn't believe there were other beings out in the universe. The universe was so vast, I knew there had to be. I just never got past the point of associating beings, you know, creatures being, you know, who was in the UFOs. I believed in UFOs, I guess, but I didn't take my mind beyond that, who was in there. So I went with Vicky, my girlfriend, to that UFO conference, or it wasn't a conference, that UFO press release thing where they talked about what was going on, and my memories were triggered there. They showed some crafts, pictures of some crafts, and my life was never the same since then.
What did you actually experience in that hypnosis?
Oh, well, first of all, I should say that I agreed to do that because Don Schmidt, who was my investigator, he was the co-director of the Center for UFO Studies, he convinced me pretty easily that hypnosis was not something I should go into on my own. And I got that. But at the same time, I was reluctant to allow them to regress me because I was pretty sure that they'd go looking for this crazy thing they called alien abductions, and I didn't believe in it. And he assured me that that was not what they were looking for, that they were very hopeful that what they found was something very benign. You know, that like my theory was it was roadside workers and they had taken me from my car, and I just couldn't remember, you know, that nothing bad had happened to me. I didn't believe anything bad had happened to me that day because I didn't have any trauma to my body or anything. So I went into the hypnosis very apologetic to the people that were there, to Don Schmidt and to the psychologist that they had on hand, and to the person, Stanley Mitchell, who did the regression. I apologized to all of them for wasting their time because I felt like they were there looking for this alien abduction thing. And I knew that's not what had happened to me. And Don kept saying, we know. We just want to help you. You know, this is what we do. We just want to, you know, rule that out and go from there. And we just want to give you the support you need. He was really kind about it. So I felt kind of embarrassed, and I felt bad for them because I knew they weren't going to get what they were kind of hoping to get, which was, you know, maybe a juicy alien abduction. But under hypnosis, and it took a long time for them, for he's not a doctor, for Mr. Mitchell to get me under. And it was quite an experience to be hypnotized.
Can you explain what happened when you met these, well, you thought there were 4 men.
Yeah, they were, yeah. My car, I was driving a little Volkswagen Beetle, and I was correct in my memory. I was driving along, and all of a sudden my car stalls. It just cuts out, and it quits. And the car starts to roll to a stop, and as it does that, I reach over and I turn off the radio, because the radio continued on playing in a Volkswagen. That's how it is. And I try to pop the clutch. I try to turn the ignition. I try to do all of that. Meanwhile, I'm getting closer to these men. 3 of them, 2 are on the side of the road. A third one is further up the road. Those 3 men all have these wands. I noticed they have these wands. Under hypnosis, this is now. And I noticed that they're all dressed alike. The 4th man is the man who walked over to the car that I recalled him leaning on the hood of my car. And he does do that. Under hypnosis, my car rolls to a stop right in front of the one guy who has stepped out into the middle of the lane of my traffic. And he's standing there as my car just comes right up to him. This is the part under hypnosis that when I was done fiddling, trying to get my car to go, I finally zero in on these guys. I start to look at them, especially when I hear him say my name. He says, Sherry, we've been waiting for you. And that just, I look, and you know, your mind does funny things. It took me a while to see that they weren't human. You know, my mind kept switching them into human, and I had to look and look away and then look again. And then once I saw that they weren't human, they were the typical, you know, dark eyes, large dark eyes and large head. I became terrified. I rolled up my window and I put my hands on the steering wheel and I put my head down and I hung onto my steering wheel. And he got very stern with me. And he said my name again. He said, Sherry, look at me, look at me. You know, when you look at me, your fear dissipates. Look at me. And I was shaking. I remember that. I remember my arms. I remember my whole body shaking so hard. I actually thought, even though I was 17, I thought I was going to die from fear. I was so afraid. And then I wouldn't look at him. He pleaded with me to look at him, and I wouldn't. And the next thing I remember is a hand coming in, you know, with grayish, kind of a grayish blue skin and tan color skin. It's a different color.
With 5 fingers, like we
no,
have?
No. It had basically 3 fingers and then kind of like a little, almost kind of like a thumb that came out. With 3 long fingers, and it wrapped around my wrist, and then another one came wrapped around this wrist, and they pulled me out of the car. As soon as they touched me, I immediately felt my body go into a more relaxed state. Oh. And I got out of the car and I stood by the side of the car. Those 2 guys were standing, one on each side of me, and the guy who I now know as Da, who's always the guy who comes for me, he was standing there, and he was asking me if I was okay. And I remember standing and looking at him and thinking, I know this guy. And yet I took in everything about him. I studied him, but I had no fear. And he says, I don't know why we have to go through this every time, you know, but you know, it's every time I see them, even up to most recently, you know, I'm way, way, way better. But my body reacts with fear to them because they're not human. And my body kind of has a mind of its own. So I have that reaction of fear. But I had the typical abduction where they took me to a spaceship.
All right.
And yeah.
So what happens when why are they taking you?
Why are they taking me? They've been taking me. What happened after the regression, Janneke, was that Mr. Mitchell, who was an excellent, excellent hypnotist, and he had asked me at the end of my recalling all these memories and getting all the details of this experience, he asked me if I wanted to leave the door open or close the door. And I said, what does that mean? And he said, well, if you leave the door closed, that means you go back to the way it was before. You forget everything. And the block is back in there, which is fast. Isn't that fascinating? Our minds are really fascinating. And he said, but if I leave the door open, you'll get more details of this experience. And I said, well, leave the door open. You know, I would like to get more details.
And you didn't quite know what you were going or getting yourself into.
I had no idea. I thought this was in one isolated incident. I should have known better because I had all kinds of weird things in my life that didn't have answers to them, things that I never looked at. I had lots and lots of things in my life but when you're blocked, the way that your mind is able to be blocked, you don't make a big deal about it. You don't think about it. You just keep on with your life.
So do you think that these beings are blocking you? Or did you block it yourself because it was too difficult to grasp?
Well, at the end of this, and I'll go back and answer your previous question too, as to why are they doing it, why. But at the end of this episode, when I was 17, for instance, you know, at the end of my time with them, after they had done the physical exam on me and I was talking with them, they asked me some questions, I asked them some questions. When it was time for me to leave, I asked if I could stay with them. I wanted to stay with them. I do that every time. Once I'm with them, I say, I don't want to go back. I want to stay with you. And he says, Sherry, you know you have to go back. And when he escorted me out of the ship and we were walking out, and the guys were going to take me back to the car, I said to him, I said, I'm not going to forget this one. I'm not going to forget this. And he said, you know, you will forget. You must forget. You have to forget. And I said, why do I have to always forget? I want to, let me remember this one. And he said, no, Sherry, think of how it would be in your life. Think how it would destroy your life if you were to remember this. It's not good for you to remember. You can't remember when the time is right, you'll remember. He walked me back to the car, and I was very defiant, and he laughed at me, and like I was a little child throwing a temper tantrum, you know, and he said, you won't remember. And he was right. As I got in my car, he put me in the car, and I rolled down the window, and I reached out to touch him one last time, and I said, I'm going to remember. And he said, you can't, Sherry, I'm sorry, you can't. And as I drove away, it fell away, the memory fell away so fast, and I clung to it. That's why when I got to Vicky's house, I did have a memory. I had programmed myself to say, little men in a spaceship, little men in a spaceship. That's all I could hold on to. But
it sounds kind of like when we have dreams, that you try to remember them, and as you were waking up, they just disappear and you lose them.
That's exactly what it's like. And you can't put the pieces together, and they don't fit, and you convince yourself it wasn't real. Right. So Vicky remembered that incident, but I didn't. As to your other question, why are they here and how long?
Why are they taking you, and what are they doing to you? You mentioned doing the physical. What is that, for instance?
When they did the physical with me, part of that process when I got older, when I was younger, it was to keep my body healthy. And as I got older, I reached a certain age, they were extracting eggs from me, ovum from me. And
why? Why do you think that?
Because I've since learned I'm a participant in the hybrid program. That's as to why I'm here having these experiences is what it took me my whole lifetime to understand after I awakened to the memories. And I started getting flashbacks of all these experiences that I've had in my life. And it turns out I've had hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of encounters with them. And why so much is because of why I came here. I remembered in 2010, I think it was, that I would use the word volunteer. I volunteered to come here. I volunteered to come in to be a participant in the hybrid program, whereby my ovum is taken and used to create life forms. That was done. There's multiple reasons for that program to be in effect.
Is that life forms on other planets?
The children that came about as a result of that were born. They were extracted from me at a certain point, and actually the ovum was joined, and they created life. And those children live on a ship. They live on the ships, or they live on. There is another planet where they live. Yes.
Wow.
And so in my book, I talk about it. It's a really far-fetched thing. I know it's really far-fetched until you start to understand the whole story, and you put all the pieces of this together, and then you start to look at it. And I mean, I look at it now, and I realize that who I was before that and what I believed about life was so small and so little. I mean, at first I was outraged, and I said, I'm a victim, and these beings, these creatures are coming, and I'm nothing more than a lab rat, and I'm being taken against my will, and they're doing these things to me. No, if you expand your awareness and you look at life from a much higher perspective, I realize that the truth of it is that I agreed to have this in my life. I came as a participant in that, to be a participant, and it serves the greater good for the planet and for humanity.
Yeah, because from what I understand, they're doing, the hybrid program, but at the same time, they're trying to awaken humanity. And you've discovered after a long time that these guys are good. You were wondering about, are they bad or are they good? And then you came to that there are no victims, right? I
had to come to that conclusion. I couldn't put together that they were evil, as was being taught and is still taught by a lot of investigators and a lot of even other participants, because you do initially feel like you're a victim, and you do you see them as evil, as long as you're in that victim mentality. And that's a lot of what's being talked about now. But the truth of it is from a higher perspective, yeah, there are millions of us that came in to help with the planet at this time, to participate in her evolution into the higher frequencies. And the reason that my guys, before I came here, I told Da, I said, don't leave me alone for very long. You know, be there with me on this. You know, don't let any harm come to me. And it's going to be a challenge for me. And so my participation was two-part. The first part of my life was the hybrid program. The second part, I re-upped it and renewed my contract to stay for a second phase, and that was to help with the awakening of the planet. So the book is meant to be a catalyst for those who, because there are so many of us that are here and so many who haven't remembered yet the truth of what's going on and why they're here. So
let's talk about these messages that they said it's so crucial that we know. There were 3 different messages that they said you need to, you know, spread around.
And that was the secret to unraveling it. A lot of, when you have the idea, the mentality of the victim, and you lay that right beside what they were teaching me, because they taught me from the time I was 5 years old. They made me recount these things, these 3 important things to know. And the number 1 most important thing to know is we are all one with our Creator. And they taught me that over and over and over again from all different angles. Every time practically that I was with them, I had to, you know, answer those questions. What are the 3 important things to know? And so the first one, we are all one with our Creator. And they said that if we, the humans on planet Earth, could just understand that and really get it, that's all we needed to know. We wouldn't need to know anything else. Just remember our oneness. Remember that when you're looking at another, you're looking at yourself, and that there is no separation, that the body and everything is just an illusion.
I just have to have a comment there, because I just saw somebody wrote to me on YouTube that they were afraid of hearing that, because they felt like, well, I will lose myself if we're just one. Who am I?
I know. I get that a lot, and because I teach A Course in Miracles. You know, I'm a student of the Course in Miracles, and I facilitate a class in it. And a lot of people go through that fear initially, because that's why we're in the state that we're in on this planet, because we do cling to that belief so much. But the truth of it is that we don't lose ourselves. We become who we truly are. We come into the glory and the truth of who we are, and it's a magnificent thing. You know, we think, because we're so used to thinking of ourselves as these separate bodies, and they're picturing it in terms of life on this planet, that we'll all come smushed together and become one blob. It's too late. We're already one. We share our mind with our Creator. We share our mind with all other living things. Everything we share our mind with. And the only thing is we have separated ourselves, you know, through the projection of having these bodies and all that. And so the idea of being oneness is a frightening concept, but the truth of it is that you become the all that is. And there aren't words, and there's no way really to describe what it feels like to be in unity consciousness, other than to say that you are in complete peace. There is no more suffering. It's not possible to suffer. You remember the truth of who you are. That means that your connection to your Creator is intact, and you become the fullness of that. And so you become so much more than what you are now. You don't lose your individualness. You just are aware. It's an awareness that you have. You don't really merge with everyone. There's just that awareness. I'll put it that way.
Is that something you can experience here and now in this life? This awareness?
I think that you can if you practice meditation, and you give yourself over. You know, in the book I talk about how important it is that we surrender our will.
Okay.
Because in this world we have free will, which was given to us in order for us to learn to be co-creators. and to be able to create. That's part of the magnificence of being part of oneness. But unfortunately, our free will has been hijacked by our ego. So we need to surrender that and give it over and step back into the light and align ourselves with our Creator and live through that. So if you do that, you do in meditation, you can experience that feeling of oneness, at least for a while you can. It's in the now moment. You can't do it if you're in ego. You're always going to be, your thoughts are always going to be racing, and you're going to be reflecting on the past and just reliving the past and thinking of all the things that went wrong, and you're going to be bringing that past forward, and you're going to be projecting it onto the now moment, or you'll be looking at the future, worrying about the future. You know, that's the ego. If you can get into the now moment, you stop your thoughts, stop the thinking in your head, that voice in your head. That's the other thing. People on this planet think that the voice that's in their head chattering away, they think that that's them.
Right.
And that's not. Yeah, that's not them. That's their ego. And that's,
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Is it kind of an accumulation of all your fears in a way?
Yes. Yeah, the ego is exactly that. It's the accumulation of your fears, both in this lifetime and in past lifetimes. So that's why it took so many volunteers to come on to the planet. That's why so many of us are here. You know, after the humans detonated the bomb in 1945, that was when the call went out for volunteers. And that's why you have this, what they call the baby boomers and the population explosion. That was us all coming in.
Yeah, Dolores Cannon is talking about this.
Yes, right. She talks about it beautifully, and that's what happened. There were all these volunteers because planet Earth was on a road at that time, as recent as my guys, when they worked with me in 1988 and 89, at that time, it didn't look like planet Earth was going to survive. You know, we were on that's why they showed me when I was 8 years old, the planet being destroyed. The timeline we were on then, we were going to be wiped out. By 1988, 89, they said there were some on the planet who were going to make it.
You mean wiped out from bombs? The atomic bomb?
When they showed me the planet's destruction, as they did a lot of children, that was a big thing that used to get talked about at the UFO conventions. Why were so many children being shown the planet being destroyed?
Oh, really?
And they thought it was because these ETs were studying our emotions. No, they were just reminding us of our mission, of our job, and saying, you know, you have work here. So that's the timeline we were on then, that the planet was going to be destroyed. It just would happen because of as the planet would move into the higher frequencies, the life on her would not be able to sustain itself in those higher frequencies, and so it would have to, it would have to pass away out of form. So in 1988, 89, when I was having intense visitations by my guys, they taught me to be a light reader. And that's in the book, detailed in the book, what that was like. And the purpose of that was, as Da told me at that time, because there's going to be great changes happening on the planet soon as the Earth moves into the higher frequencies. She has chosen to move forward with the rest of the universe and catch up with the rest of the universe. And those on her children who resonate with that and are ready and able and willing to live in peace and harmony and go with her will be allowed to do that. But there has been those that are not quite there. Their vibration is lower and they need more time to learn their lessons. And he said there's no judgment in this. And he said those beings will be taken to another planet and allowed to continue on their journey. And so at that time in 88, 89, there was a split that was going to happen. You see, we'd made some progression, and humanity was finally waking up, but not all of them. So now here we are, and then 2009, when he comes back, he tells me, the shift is happening now, the changes are happening, planet Earth is moving into the higher frequencies, and
that's good news.
yeah, it is. She's well, we got left behind, and so. Those who are of the vibration that will go with her, those who are awakened and awakening will be going with her, and those that are not awakened, that's fine. they just won't be able to stay, they will stay in the frequency that resonates with them. But the reason that I'm here, you're here, so many of us are here now talking about all this, it's everywhere on the internet. The reason is because we want to awaken as many of God's children, planet Earth's children, as we can, because unity consciousness is a fantastic place to be. 3D Earth, not so much. Not a place to be.
No. So let's go back to those three things. Okay, the first one was oneness.
Oneness.
And the second one?
Second one I didn't understand for a long time. The second one is we are multidimensional beings existing on more than one level simultaneously. Now, as a 5-year-old, that was really tough for me to understand, but that's what they taught me. We are all multidimensional beings existing on more than one level simultaneously.
How does that work? How is that possible?
It is complicated to try to put into words, and I didn't know why that, of all the teachings, because there's been a lot of things, but why was that one of the top 3 for us to know? Now, as we go into the shift, it becomes clear to me, because now as we are moving into the 5th dimension, we are actually, it ties into the oneness, because what we are doing is we're actually bringing ourselves, because we have other aspects of ourself. We are an extension of our Creator. Each and every one of us has the light of the Creator within us. We are of the Creator. We are aspects of God playing in His creation, having an experience at this moment of separation on this planet, which is kind of a little bit different. It was not our Creator's intention that we have an experience of separation, because that's a very painful place for us to be. And God did not will that we have pain. We did that to ourselves, unfortunately. I know that it was, I think in the 80s, there were headlines like on Life magazine or somewhere in some magazine, I know it said, "Is God dead? And has God forgotten us? What happened? God must have died," because we suffer so much on this planet. There's so much pain. So it's important for us to understand that this is just a small aspect of who we are having this experience. The truth is that we are connected to our source. We are like a ray of light that comes out from God and goes out, and it's about vibration. The universe, along with all living things, which includes us, is energy. It's about energy and about the vibration of that energy. So as that energy of our Creator goes out in a ray, like we are a ray coming out, the further it goes out, if you want to picture it that way, it's the best way I know how to explain it. The further you go out, say the further you get away from the Creator, the slower your vibration is, the more it slows down, and the denser it gets, and your light becomes smaller, let's put it that way, and dimmer. So you go further out. So when you're a 3-dimensional being, you're kind of out at the end of that ray, and you're starting at the bottom, more or less. I mean, there's frequencies below 3-dimension, but
so does that mean that we're living multiple lives at the same time? Like why people are having memories from past lives,
right?
For instance? Right.
Because as you're that ray of light, as you're that beam of energy, you have aspects of yourself below and above. And then you belong to a soul family. So, I mean, we're ultimately all one. Right. So if you follow that beam of light up, you merge with other aspects, not just of yourself, but of others who are seemingly others. But the truth of it is like in my Course in Miracles class, I say, one of the best things you can do is when you go out in the world is to look at others as other selves. Don't call them others. Say, that's my other self there. That's my other self. That's my other self. That's my other self. There are other aspects of you, of the oneness, because that's the truth of it. They're not separate from you. We have these bodies that make us believe we're separate. But in the higher dimensions, you don't have bodies. My guys don't have bodies. They put those on. They're containers that they wear to come into this density, because they have to be in this frequency. And so that's how they're able to do their work.
Does that mean that they're not, they don't have to be the grace, but they're just using that body?
Right. In the book, when I started the book, I believed them to be grays. By the time I got to the end of the book, I had asked Da, you know, was he a gray, was he a zeta? And he said that would not best describe the truth of who I am. And I said, well, you look like a zeta. And he said, well, he didn't. That was the answer he gave. And I said, well, then what are you? And he said, I am a voyager of the universe going where needed in service to the Creator. And he said, and I am what you would call an etheric being, in that he is simply does not have form other than just a light, sort of a light body. And I've seen him in that form. You know, I've seen him on the ship, and that, you know, when I go up to the ship, there's a form that they have when they're on the ship, and there's a form that they have when they're in the true nature of who they are. And I've taken those same forms myself. You know, I go on the ship in my body, or I go on the ship and I leave my body on the ship somewhere and take form, either in the form that they're in or in my etheric body. And so anyway, the multidimensional aspect of who we are it's layered. It's very layered. And it was very difficult to explain it in the book, and I just try my best because it comes back to oneness. So we are multidimensional beings, yes, but we are also all the same. You know, I can explore your life. I can at some point, if I want to, say, what is it like to have been Yannicka and have the experiences that she had? You know, yeah, I mean, because you know, that scares people to think that there's no secrets.
But if we're one and I'm having the experience, right, aren't you kind of having it in a higher perspective as well? Do you really need to switch?
No, don't need. No, I mean, all that's going to survive from this world, from this planet, all that's happened here, all that will happen eventually, all that's going to survive is just all the thing that relates to love. And the only thing that is created by our Father, Mother God, is all that's going to go with us. That does not include our bodies. That does not include anything physical. It does not include anything that dies. The only thing that's true, the only thing that goes on is anything that's of love. So all the drama and all this stuff we have going on here, it's just that. It's just drama. It's nothing more than just us play acting and egos pretending to, you know.
And that this is an illusion, that life is an illusion.
It is. It is. And I think that's good news. I think that's very...
I've always perceived it that way. I've always felt it was this act that we're doing. I never felt it was really real in a way. Yeah. But let's go back to the third lesson that they gave you.
The third most important thing to know, they said, is to monitor your thoughts.
Right.
And that was a good advice for living in this world, because our thoughts create our reality in this world. Thoughts are energy, and every thought that you have creates. Now, you can create through love, which is the best way to create, and you do that by surrendering your will every day and aligning yourself with your higher self, with the Holy Spirit, with God, whatever you want to call it, all that is the universe. And you create through love. Otherwise, you're going to miscreate. You're gonna make through the ego, and what you make through the ego is what you see around you, for the most part, but not always. You can decide what world you want to see, depending on if you look through fear. And in the book, I explain I hope that it's clear that my encounters with my guides were very fearful, terrifying experiences, as long as I looked at it through fear.
Right.
And when I stepped out of that and I observed what was happening to me, and I thought, wait a minute, these guys are teaching me to be light workers. They're taking care of my body, and they're teaching me we're all one. And then finally Dot at one point says, Sherry, what can we do to help you with this fear? And he offers to be of assistance to help me feel more comfortable, because he couldn't leave me alone as much as I was begging him to. And he couldn't tell me, they are not allowed to say, sorry, but you came here as a volunteer, you have a mission to do, you have a job to do. He couldn't tell me that. That's against the rules. So I couldn't align those things. So when I finally stepped out of my fear, it changed everything. Everything came into focus, and I started to have cooperative encounters with them, I can have conversations with him. You know, everything changed when I let go of the fear. And that's how it is in the world. We will change the world. You know, the Course in Miracles says that the end of the earth, the end of the world won't come through destruction. It'll come from us changing our mind about it. Mm-hmm. So that's all it will take.
And you still have contact with them, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's through the astral more? It's not so physical anymore?
Yeah, it could be. My encounters my whole life were physical, and they were, for the most part, daytime encounters. And I think that they did that because it was less frightening to me, and I appreciate that. You know, they came during the day a lot for me, and I would have gaps of missing time. I had some at night, you know, a fair number, because I spent a lot with them. When they were active in my life, when their activity periods were coming on, I would be with them 3, 4, or 5 times a week. Wow. So it was very intense. Yeah, it was very wearing on me. But I do have contact. They came back after a pretty long period of absence in 2009 and showed up and said that, you know, the earth changes, the shift was happening and work to do. So I have switched out aspects of myself as I've had this journey in this body on planet Earth. And the aspect that I am, you know, is a part of that family, that group. That's my soul family. That's my group family. And Da is my family. And that's the family the world that I come from before I was here. And so I'm very much in awareness that there is a big aspect of who I am that is there with them. And as I have these experiences on Earth, and I try to do what I need to do, for when I wrote the book, I switched out, you can call it kind of a little bit of a death, but I step out. The aspect that is in this body steps out and allows another aspect to come in. So I keep switching out these aspects. I mean, it's still me, Sherry Wilde.
What do you mean switching out of an aspect? I don't quite understand.
It's the awareness that is the part of that multidimensional being that I was talking about. Mm-hmm. There's different frequencies and vibrations that exist within that beingness that is you, or that is me. And so I brought in a different aspect of that beingness to write the book at that time. And after that was done, then that aspect has stepped out and another aspect has come in to take on the next part of the journey, you know, the role for what I need to do to try to get the word out there on the book. And so it's kind of interesting, because all that I'm doing, Yannicka, is what everybody on planet Earth is going to do eventually, hopefully. That's our hope, is that it's just a remembering process. And I have remembered, maybe I'm at the front of the line a little bit more. There's me, but there's others ahead of me, definitely, and there's others alongside of me that are, all we're doing is remembering who we are now. Mm-hmm. We're remembering the truth of who we are. That's the big catchphrase, is remember the truth of who you are. Mm-hmm. So,
and we're actually going to talk about this in another interview, like how the humans came to this planet and what really happened. It's a totally different version than from what we have been reading in the history books.
Right.
And that gives another, or actually another picture, a broader picture that puts this in perspective in a way.
Yes.
But I know that you were a bit hesitant with writing this book. How have people reacted around you when you started telling these stories? Because you were a successful real estate broker and you were very sane and very normal and, or, you know, try to give that impression. And then all of a sudden you start to talk about these things. Yeah.
It's like living 2 lives. I didn't seem to have any choice. I didn't have a choice when the book came out. As I write in there, I tell how I was on page 3 of it when I kind of woke up. I had been typing away on my computer, and it's like I did it in some kind of an altered state, because I looked at the screen and I don't usually, I'm usually on there doing email or watching YouTube videos or something. I very seldom am on an empty page writing anything. So I looked at it and I thought, what am I doing? And I read the last sentence and I was like, what is that? And then I read the last paragraph and I was like, oh, criminy. I'm writing about my UFO encounters, and I said out loud, I said, no, I'm not going to write this. And I heard him say, it's time. And I said, I don't want to do this, but I did. I went back to the beginning of it. I read it, and I thought, this ain't bad. Did I write this? It's kind of interesting, you know, because I had people try to write about my experiences before. Okay. I met with people because they'd wanted to write about it. And I said, if you want to write about it and keep me out of it, keep me anonymous, that's fine. But there was so much to it. It was very difficult on how to tell the story and have it make sense. And even in my book, I'm accessing, you know, different timelines constantly. But I didn't write the book the way that I think most people write a book. They probably do an outline, and they probably have an idea of what they want. Every day I would sit down at that computer, and it just came out. It just came out of me. And as it came out of me, I would read it, and I would go, oh, yeah, that's how it went. I was remembering as I wrote. And what I remembered at the beginning was not the same as what I remembered at the end. By the time I got to the end, you know, I had a closer awareness of who Da was and about, you know, my awakening to being a volunteer. All that came up, you know, things were happening as I wrote the book. And my experiences expanded and became deeper, and the understanding became deeper within me. So you can tell, I think you can tell from the beginning to the end, the process that I was going through. So it's out, and
yeah, what are the reactions? What are people saying now?
The people, I wasn't sure what to expect. I'm kind of hiding right now. I don't go into my local town very much, but the little bit that I've gone out, has been positive. And I've been asked, apparently, there are a lot of people locally are reading the book. And I was a little nervous about it, but not so much for myself as for my daughter, who has a career also in real estate. She did not want me to let that book come out, and her and her sister, you know, I was informed they were going to get an attorney and try to stop it from being published. I don't know that they went that far, if they did or not, but I know that having the book published was the straw that broke the camel's back. My youngest daughter, I've been estranged from my oldest daughter for about 5 years now. And now my youngest daughter no longer speaks to me since the book was published either. So, wow. Yeah, so that part of it is unfortunate, very unfortunate. But it's part, I trust in the experience. They're having their own experiences, and they're having their own awakening process that they need to go through. And at the end of the day, it will all be fine. It's just, I miss them a lot. And it couldn't have gone any differently. I thought about it when my youngest told me that she didn't want to have that book come out, that I was embarrassing her and causing a lot of shame. And so I did, for a short time, make the decision to not let the book come out. I had thought that it was too big a price I was paying, and I wasn't going to do it.
What made you turn around? What made you do it?
Well, that night, that was, I think, May 13th. It was right after Mother's Day, because I'd had a really nice day with my daughter, but then the whole thing about the book, and so I said, I'm not going to let the book come out. I was going to do my best to cancel it, and I went to bed that night with that decision pretty firmly made. And Doc came that night, and he made a big spectacle of himself. You know, he wanted me to remember and know that this was not a dream. And he came in and he said, you need to remember, you know, what you're here for. He said, have you forgotten the promise you made? Which is where the title of the book came from then. It was called something else before that. And he said, you can't acquiesce to your daughter's demands. You need to do serve the greater good. And that it actually would be worse if you were to give in to her threats, and I need to let it play itself out. And, you know, it was funny because he did the whole ear-shattering sound. You know, they break the sound barrier sometimes when they come. There's this big pop. It's just a huge cracking sound, and then this brilliant flash of light. And all my electricity surges and it goes out. My dog goes crazy, and it's funny, you know. But he came in and you know, I changed my mind.
I just have to ask, why are they not visiting people in positions that really can make a difference, like leaders, prime ministers? You know,
that's what I said when I was 8 years old, and they showed me the earth being destroyed, and I just burst into tears. And he said, "This hasn't happened yet, but this is your future if you don't change your ways." And I said, "Why are you telling me this? I'm just a little girl, you know, go to the president, go to somebody who can make a difference." But he said, "It starts with one," was his answer, you know, and he just said, "It starts with one." And I get what he means now, you know, to go to our president. I mean, I'm not sure that would work, in all honesty. I don't know, but I would venture to say that our president and most of the heads of states around the world know the truth of what the story is about this planet. And either their hands are tied or they're a part of what's going on this planet. So it has to start with us, just us, you know. And because our minds are all one anyway, you know, you change on that level, and it's like, it's energy, it's vibration. You know, I change, and that affects everyone. As I raise my vibration, which I work on doing every day, and as I raise my vibration, that affects the overall vibration of the planet, and it affects everyone. My awakening affects other people's awakening because of our connection.
Yeah, I believe that too, and I really feel that when you're in a happy mood, you're affecting other people. It's, you know, that simple. You can feel it. So let's. This has been a really exciting interview. I mean, this topic is very big. That's why we're doing another interview.
It is big. But I start wandering off, you know, because there's so many different.
And there's so many details in this book, and I really recommend reading it. And you guys can buy it on my site, Wisdom from North, or on Sherry's site. But I just want to ask you if you can give some practical tools to how we can raise our vibrations.
Oh, that's a great question, and thank you. Yeah, because that's really ultimately what I'm here for, is to assist in that way. So the best way to do that is to remember the truth of who you are, which is to every day remember that you are a child of the creators. Remember the truth of who you are. Remind yourself of that first thing in the morning, last thing at night, and all day long. Remember the truth. Forget, you know, try to see the truth of the world, but to raise your vibration, it's a remembering, but it's also taking time. And I know we're all so distracted. That's why we have this world the way that it is to keep us distracted. Find time to sit in silence. Read something that inspires you. Eckhart Tolle. I love the Course in Miracles, of course. Any spiritual teacher, Amelia Benz is wonderful. Anybody that inspires you to remember the truth of who you are. And Amelia Benz has a wonderful fear release exercise, because remembering who you are, that you are this being of light, and our job is to make to get your vibration higher, means that you get your light flowing clearly through you, okay, without blocks. What blocks your light from flowing to the multidimensional selves that you are, both those aspects of you below and the aspects above you. So you want to join all aspects of yourself together. And so to do that, your light needs to flow and to resonate as high as possible. So the blocks that will be stopping your light from flowing are any places where you're harboring any kind of grievances or grudges or idea of being a victim, any place where there's fear, and all those things are fear. Even if you don't believe it's fear. Anger is fear. Everything goes back to fear. So you actually, Amelia does it beautifully. You know, you scan your bodies, your physical and etheric, your emotional bodies. You find those places. And if you don't know how to do that, then just fake it. Just fake it. Just imagine it. But I would recommend going onto her site and doing that exercise and learning to quiet your mind and be in the now moment. That's Eckhart Tolle's teachings, which are fantastic. Be in the now moment. Read his books and practice letting go of the chattering thoughts that are keeping you distracted. Bring yourself into the now moment and be focused there. That's the only place you can be in alignment with your higher self, with your creator. You'll never find it if you're in ego, the fear-based part of you, which is distracted by the past or fearful of the future and trying to plan for the future, all those things. So there are great teachers out there, great tools.
Oh, that's beautiful. And I know it's so important that each and one of us are doing it, going, into oneself and looking at the shadows. And because, like we talked about, we affect each other. That's why every soul has to do it.
Right. So, it's a personal journey, but it's a journey of all of us. And we want to bring as many home as we can, home being up to the fifth dimension and unity consciousness. There's nothing more important. I know that people think that, keeping their job, and I know, being distracted by money issues and getting their education and planning for the future and all that. None of that. It's just distractions. What's important, you will be taken care of if you do this work. If you commit yourself to this work, you will be taken care of. Oh. You don't have to worry. I mean, that's part of the awakening, is the realization that you don't have to worry and have to, scramble here and scramble there to get money and to get this and get that. I mean, that's, during the recession, I learned that big time, that you learn trust and you will be taken care of.
Is that also because of law of attraction, that when you do trust, you feel like, oh, okay, it's coming to me, and then it's actually coming to you because you're creating it yourself also?
I'm not familiar with law of attraction, but I've heard of it, and I would just say that the law of the universe is that you attract yourself at the level that you vibrate at. So if your vibration is high, nothing that's of fear or negative can affect you. So you will be taken care of as your vibration goes higher. All the beings of light, your guides, your angels, your teachers, they are waiting for you to reach that place where you surrender your will. As soon as you do that, your life changes, and they come and they support you, and you learn these lessons as you go along, and you're supported. And you'll know it because miracles start happening in your life, and miracles are our natural state. They're not something that we're supposed to be in awe of. That's what we were created to. We'll get into that, I guess, in our next talk.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Sherry. I love talking to you, and I look forward to our next interview. And I guess we'll just stop there. And I wish you all the best and good luck with your work. And thank you so much for watching, guys. And much light from Wisconsin and from Oslo.
Yes. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.